My name is Detective Pierce. I've seen corpses laid out in alleyways, murderers who carved their sins into the flesh of strangers, and desperate souls who thought blood could erase their debts. But nothing in my years as a detective had prepared me for the night when steel, smoke, and death itself came rattling down forgotten tracks. It began with a letter. The envelope had no return address. The handwriting was delicate, almost ceremonial, the kind you'd see in old Bibles or on gravestones. It was delivered to my office one rain-slicked evening, slipped under the door as if the messenger didn't want to be seen. Inside, a single sheet of paper, yellowed and brittle, carried only one sentence. Detective, the train will arrive at midnight. Do not let it claim another soul. No signature. No explanation. Just those words, etched in fading ink, as though someone wanted to warn me and curse me in the same breath. At first, I dismissed it as a prank. This city has its share of eccentrics, drunk poets, cultists looking for a savior, lunatics who think they can bargain with shadows. But something about the letter stuck in my mind, like a thorn you can't dig out. Perhaps it was the smell of the paper, not ink, not mildew, but smoke. Faint, acrid, like coal ash clinging to old cloth. By midnight, I found myself standing at the abandoned rail yard on the edge of town. The place had been shut down decades ago, after a derailment took more than 50 lives. The company had bricked up the tunnels, chained the gates, and let rust and weeds swallow the place. The locals whispered that the accident wasn't an accident at all, that the train still ran, only now it carried passengers who never arrived. They called it the funeral train. Most dismissed the tale as folklore, a ghost story told by drunks in bars. But as I stood beneath the skeletal remains of the old platform, lantern light flickering across rusted steel, I could feel something in the air, a pressure, heavy and cold, like the night itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it. At first, just a low rumble, faint as distant thunder. The rails beneath my boots vibrated. The weeds around the platform began to stir, though the night was windless. And then came the whistle, long, mournful, echoing through the rail yard like a funeral dirge. I gripped the lantern tighter. Through the mist, I saw it, a locomotive, black as coal, its iron skin glistening as though it had just rolled out of the factory. Yet its windows were shattered, its frame bent and broken, as if it had never truly left the wreckage of its last ride. Steam hissed from its lungs, thick and white, curling into shapes that looked like faces before dissolving into the night. The train slowed, screeching against the rusted rails, until it came to a halt before me. Doors groaned open, their hinges screaming with a sound that rattled the bones. And then they stepped out. Not people. Not exactly. Figures in black funeral attire, their faces pale and waxy, like corpses dressed for burial. Their eyes were hollow, empty sockets that still managed to follow me as they descended the steps in silence. Each clutched a small object, a pocket watch, a rosary, a photograph burned at the edges, tokens of lives they no longer lived. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence alone spoke louder than any voice. We are passengers, and the train must be filled. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to let the dead have their journey. But something held me there, rooted to the cracked concrete of the platform. Perhaps it was duty. Perhaps it was the letter. Perhaps it was the realization that the funeral train wasn't a myth. It was real, and it had come for someone. One of the passengers turned toward me. She was small, fragile, her black veil torn at the edges. When she lifted it, I saw a child's face, gray skin stretched over bone, lips stitched shut with thread. In her tiny hands she held a stuffed toy rabbit, its fur soaked with something dark. She extended it toward me, trembling, as if asking me to take it. My hand moved before I could stop it. I reached for the toy, but the moment my fingers brushed the damp fabric, the girl let out a muffled cry, a sound of despair that should not have been possible with her mouth sewn closed. The world shifted. I wasn't standing on the rail yard anymore. I was inside the train. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with doors that opened and closed on their own. Through the windows, nothing but black, no sky, no stars, no ground. Just void. A clock on the wall ticked backward, its hands jerking and stuttering. And everywhere I looked, faces pressed against the glass. Dozens. Hundreds. They stared from the other side of the windows, pale and desperate, their hands clawing against the barrier as though begging to be let in. Or perhaps to be let out. I stumbled forward, clutching the rabbit. My lantern sputtered, its light swallowed by the shadows that moved with purpose, closing in on me. I tried the doors, locked every one. But the whispers came from behind them, voices chanting my name, rising in unison with the groaning of the train's engine. Then I saw it. At the far end of the corridor stood a man in a conductor's uniform, his cap tilted low over his face. He lifted a lantern of his own, its flame a sickly green. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his head. And I realized he had no face. Just smooth flesh, stretched tight over bone, with a jagged mouth carved where none should be. He smiled. "Detective Pierce," he whispered, though his lips didn't move. "Your stop has come." The train screamed, steel grinding against steel, and the world went black. I woke with the taste of ash on my tongue. The lantern had gone out, yet the corridor around me still pulsed with that sickly green glow, bleeding from the conductor's lamp. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor, steady, measured, each one reverberating through the hollow bones of the train. I tried to move, but my legs felt heavy, as though chained to the floor. When I looked down, I saw why. Black tendrils of smoke had coiled around my boots, binding me in place. They weren't smoke at all, but hands. Fingers, dozens of them, clawing from the shadows beneath the train, grasping, pulling, as if the floor itself hung above an abyss that wanted me for its own. The conductor stopped only a few feet away. His lantern swung at his side, its green flame casting grotesque shadows across his faceless head. His mouth, the only feature he possessed, stretched wider, revealing teeth too long, too sharp. "You boarded," he said, his voice like coal grinding under iron wheels. "That means you ride." I forced my breath steady. "I didn't board. You pulled me here." His laugh was hollow, mechanical, as though carried by the groan of the train itself. "No one is pulled. The funeral train takes only the willing. You touched the offering. You accepted the child's gift." The rabbit. I still clutched it in my hand, its fabric damp, its button eyes staring up at me. It pulsed faintly with warmth, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. The conductor tilted his head, lantern swaying. "That toy binds you. As surely as the thread binds her mouth." I tried to throw it away, but my fingers refused to open. My knuckles whitened with the effort, but it was as though the toy had grown into my hand. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He leaned closer. I could smell the rot behind his words, the damp stench of earth freshly dug. "It is not what I want, detective. It is what the train wants." "And what is that?" His lantern flared. The smoke hands tightened around my legs. From the windows, faces pressed harder against the glass, mouths opening in silent screams. The entire train seemed to lean closer, listening, hungering. "The train feeds on names. Every passenger is a name erased, a soul collected, a ledger balanced. You carry a name unclaimed. That makes you precious." His teeth clicked together like clockwork. "But there are bargains. The train always bargains. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of bargain? He straightened, his posture rigid, ceremonial, as though he were about to recite scripture. One soul may be spared if another is given. The ledger does not care whose name it takes, only that the page is filled. A chill worked its way through me. The meaning was clear. He wanted me to choose someone else. Someone to take my place. No deal, I said. His grin widened, splitting further across his faceless head. Then the train will choose for you. And you will ride to the end of the line. The smoke surged upward, climbing my legs, wrapping around my chest. My ribs felt like they were being crushed by cold iron. The windows rattled violently as the faces outside began to scream, soundless but deafening inside my skull. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the smoke released me. I fell to my knees, coughing, my vision swimming. The rabbit slipped from my hand, landing softly on the floor. When I looked up, the conductor was gone. The corridor stretched before me, endless, but different now. The doors had changed. Their brass plates bore names, etched deep and glowing faintly. I leaned closer to the nearest one and froze. It read Pierce. My name. I tried the handle. Locked. I moved to the next door. Another name, Elizabeth Marrow. I didn't know it, but the sound of it sent a shiver down my spine, as though the train wanted me to. Every door bore a name. Some I recognized from the papers, victims of murders unsolved, people gone missing. Others I didn't. Some doors were crossed out with jagged marks, others smeared with what looked like soot or dried blood. And the whispering grew louder. From behind every door, voices called, begging, pleading, some angry, some desperate. One voice rose above them all, shrill, sharp, insistent. Detective! Please! Let me out! I froze, my hand hovering over the handle. The voice was familiar. I knew that voice. It was Thompson. Sergeant Thompson. He'd gone missing 3 months ago, while investigating a smuggling ring down by the docks. His disappearance had been filed away as unsolved, another casualty of the city's corruption. But now his voice echoed from the other side of the door. Pierce! For God's sake, open it! I don't belong here. I don't. His voice cracked, dissolving into sobs. The rabbit lay at my feet, staring at me. The stitches on its chest had begun to loosen, threads unraveling to reveal stuffing that writhed like worms. The conductor's words echoed in my head. One soul may be spared if another is given. My hand trembled on the door handle. If I opened it, would I condemn Thompson? Or save him? Or would I be the one to take his place? The lantern flickered back to life in my hand, though I hadn't lit it. Its light spilled down the corridor, illuminating more names, more doors, more choices. The funeral train was testing me. And I had the sickening sense that no matter what choice I made, it would already be the wrong one. The whistle blew again, long and low. The train had not yet reached its station. But it was getting closer. And the next stop would demand a price. The lantern's glow quivered as though it feared what lay ahead. The corridor of names stretched onward, its brass plates gleaming faintly in the green shimmer that pulsed through the train's walls. The air was thick, heavy, filled with a copper tang that clung to the back of my throat. The rabbit lay forgotten behind me, or so I tried to convince myself. But I felt its weight still, phantom-like, pressing against my palm as if stitched to my bones. I stepped closer to Thompson's door. My breath fogged against the brass, though the air was warm. The lock clicked once, faint but deliberate, as if acknowledging me. His voice rose again from within, frantic, echoing in my skull. Pierce! Please, for the love of God, don't leave me here. It's not my time! The voice dissolved into a wet, choking cough, and then silence. I pulled my hand away from the handle. My pulse hammered in my ears. If I opened the door, what would I unleash? Thompson alive? Thompson changed? Or something wearing his voice like a mask? The train moaned around me, the sound of metal under strain. The whistle blew again, nearer this time, shaking the corridor. The faces in the windows pressed harder against the glass, their mouths opening wider, as if eager for the stop that approached. I forced myself to keep moving. Each door bore a name. Many I didn't know. Some I did. Alistair Crane. A banker who'd vanished after his fraud case came to light. Margaret Lyle. A seamstress, found drowned in the harbor. Jonah Keane. A priest whose sermons had filled the papers before his sudden disappearance. Every name was a life swallowed. Every door a ledger entry. And then I saw it, a door unlike the rest. Its plate was black, not brass. No name etched upon it. Only scratches, claw marks gouged into the metal, as though something had tried to carve its way out. The lantern dimmed when I stepped near. My breath hitched. Even the voices fell silent, as though unwilling to draw the attention of whatever lingered there. I turned away quickly. At the corridor's end stood a chamber. Its door hung open, swaying gently with the rhythm of the train. Inside, the light deepened into a sickly emerald glow. I stepped in. The chamber was circular, lined floor to ceiling with ledgers. Dozens. Hundreds. Their bindings cracked, their pages yellowed, their shelves swaying with the motion of the train. Some books were chained shut, others burst open, their parchment spilling across the floor like entrails. At the center stood a pedestal. Upon it, a single book, bound in iron, its cover marked with the same words I had seen before. The Hollow Wakes. But when I touched it, the title shifted, the letters writhing like worms until they rearranged themselves. The Ledger of Names. I opened it. The pages turned themselves, stopping where they pleased. Names filled the parchment in neat, perfect script. Each one carried a date beside it, followed by a single word, claimed. My eyes scanned downward until they froze on a name I knew too well. Pierce. Beside it, the word pending. The page trembled. Ink bled outward, spidering across the parchment like veins. It spread upward, writing itself as I watched. Thompson, pending. My blood ran cold. The train wasn't waiting for me to choose. It was tallying both of us. From the shelves, pages rustled. The whispering voices rose, layered, overlapping, a chorus of the dead. They spoke in fragments, words carried on the groan of the train. Choose. Ledger must balance. One spared. One given. I slammed the book shut. The voices fell silent, but the walls groaned louder. The floor beneath me shook, rattling the shelves. The lantern's flames shrieked, flaring and shrinking all at once. Then the conductor appeared. He stepped from the shadows between shelves, his lamp swaying. His grin stretched wider than before, teeth shining like steel. You see now. The ledger cannot be denied. His voice rumbled like coal dragged across stone. The train does not stop for pity. One must always pay. I steadied my breath. I'm not giving you anyone. He tilted his head, as though amused. Then you misunderstand, detective. The funeral train takes regardless. Your only choice is who? His lamp flared. The smoke surged from the floor, rising in tendrils, wrapping the shelves, clutching the ledgers. Faces swam in the shadows, mouths open in silent screams. You carry a name unclaimed. You hold the balance. Decide, or the train will decide for you. And it has no kindness in its choosing. The chamber darkened. The lantern in my hand sputtered, nearly dead. My heart pounded, my throat dry. The ledger throbbed against my palms like a living thing. The names glowed faintly in the dark. Pierce. Pending. Thompson. Pending. The whistle blew again. The train was slowing. We were approaching the station. And I knew, whatever waited there, it would not let me step off this train alive unless I made my choice. The whistle cut through the chamber like a blade, long and mournful. The shelves shuddered, ledgers tumbled, and the train's iron bones screamed as if grinding against unseen rails. My lantern sputtered once, then steadied, a frail ember in the black. We were slowing. The conductor's grin glowed faintly in the green light of his lamp. His teeth looked wrong in that color, like shards of bone instead of ivory. "The station," he said, each syllable rolling like thunder. "You will see it. All passengers must. It is where debts are tallied, where the ledger is weighed. And detective," he leaned closer. His breath was hot, and it smelled of burning paper. "The station never lets a man leave the way he entered." Before I could answer, the shadows swallowed him whole. His lantern snuffed in silence. I stumbled back into the corridor. The doors rattled now, violently, as if something behind them pounded to be let out. Thompson's door banged the loudest, shaking on its hinges. His voice came muffled, frantic, barely human anymore. "Pierce! Don't let them take me! For God's sake, open it! Open the door!" I pressed onward, refusing to look back. The air grew hot, thick with cinders, each breath burning my throat. Outside the windows, the dark gave way to a faint glow. And then I saw it. The station. It rose from the blackness like a cathedral of ruin. Vast iron pillars loomed, cracked and twisted, supporting a ceiling that had no end. Ash rained from above, endless, drifting like snow across the platforms. Shapes shuffled in the dust, passengers with hollow eyes and faces blurred by soot. They stood waiting, silent, their bodies trembling with each whistle's cry. The train screeched as it slowed. Sparks flew from beneath its wheels. The windows shuddered. The very air seemed to weep. When the train stopped, the doors unlatched on their own. A groaning chorus of metal, deliberate, final. I stepped down. The platform was warm beneath my boots, as if coals burned just beneath its surface. Ash stuck to my coat, clung to my skin, stung my eyes. The passengers gathered close, not touching, not speaking, but their gazes clung to me with the weight of accusation. At the platform's center stood another pedestal. Upon it, another ledger. But this one wasn't closed. Its pages flipped endlessly, turning in a phantom wind. The script wrote itself in real time. Every page bore a name. And every so often, a word burned beside it, claimed. As I watched, ink bled across a page. Elijah Thompson, pending. The ink dripped, black and hot, smoking as it fell to the ash. Then another line began to write itself. My stomach tightened as I read it. Pierce, pending. The word glowed faintly red, as if written in ember rather than ink. I closed the book. Or tried to. My hands passed through it like smoke. From the far side of the platform, a sound rose. Heavy footsteps. A shuffle of chains. A groan like stone dragged across stone. And then it came into view. Tall. Bent. Wrapped in funeral cloth that trailed across the ash like roots. Its hands were long, bone-white, tipped with nails like iron spikes. Where a face should have been was only a mask of ash, cracked and shifting, as if barely holding something inside. The passengers shrank back, bowing their heads. The conductor's voice filled the air, though he wasn't there to be seen. The collector. The one who ensures the ledger is balanced. Speak your choice, detective, or he will take it upon himself to choose for you. The thing's head tilted, and though it had no eyes, I felt its stare pierce me. My chest tightened as though a noose had drawn around it. Behind me, from the train, Thompson screamed. His fist hammered the door of his compartment. "Pierce! It's me or you, damn it! Don't let them drag me down!" The collector's hand rose, pointing toward me, then slowly turned toward the train, toward Thompson's door. It waited. Patient. Eternal. The ash swirled around us like a storm. The ledger's pages snapped shut with a crack, as though struck by a gavel. The choice was mine. One name would be claimed. One would remain. And in that moment, I understood, the funeral train wasn't a passage. It was a trial. The whistle blew again, louder, shaking the platform, rattling the bones in my chest. The collector stepped closer. The collector's shadow fell over me like the weight of a coffin lid. It didn't move fast, it didn't need to. Its presence was enough to carve the marrow from my bones. Every step it took rang like a hammer on an anvil, each one measured, deliberate, echoing in the hollow expanse of the station. The ash rose in great waves, curling around its legs as though worshipping. The faceless mask cracked wider, and for an instant, I glimpsed what hid beneath. Nothing I could name, only movement, like smoke writhing inside a furnace. Thompson's shrieks rattled behind me. His fists banged on the compartment door of the train, a sound that now resembled a funeral drum. "Pierce! Don't let it take me! I swear to God I'll do anything!" The collector's hand extended, palm upward, waiting. The other hand, longer than it should have been, pointed toward the platform's ledger. Two names glowed on its surface. Elijah Thompson, pending. Pierce, pending. A third name began to bleed across the page in fresh ink. The collector, eternal. I understood then, this wasn't merely judgment. It was a cycle. Someone must always be chosen. Someone must always be fed into the maw of the train, while another is allowed to stumble back into the world, marked and scarred but breathing. The conductor's voice hissed through the rafters, though I could not see him. One must go beneath the wheels. One must remain on the rails. Balance is balance. Choose. I took a step toward the ledger. My fingers trembled as I hovered above it. The book pulsed with heat, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Behind me, Thompson screamed again. His voice was raw, more animal than human. "You're the detective! You solve things! Solve this, damn you! You can't let them take me!" The collector tilted its head, waiting. It did not hurry. Eternity never does. I thought of Thompson's eyes, the fever in them, the stench of fear he carried even before the train had begun its journey. A man who'd run from debts, from lies, from truths he'd buried in shallow graves. And I thought of myself, and the shadow of every case I'd carried like a millstone around my neck. Names I couldn't save. Faces that haunted my sleep. Perhaps the ledger wasn't lying. Perhaps we both belonged here. But I still had a choice. I set my hand upon the page. The letters shifted beneath my palm, searing my skin, branding me with ink and fire. The collector's faceless mask leaned closer, waiting for the verdict. My lips parted. And I whispered a name. The ledger roared like a furnace. The station shook. Thompson's scream cut the air, then was drowned beneath the shriek of the whistle, the grinding of steel, the tearing of flesh and shadow. The train devoured him. His compartment slammed open, and I saw for one terrible instant his form dragged through the doorway by hands that were not hands, pulled down into the black rails beneath the platform. His eyes found mine once before he vanished. They weren't pleading anymore. They were accusing. Then silence. The ledger closed with a final thud. The collector withdrew, its head bowing, as though satisfied. Ash fell heavier, coating the station in morning snow. The conductor appeared at my side, his lantern burning again, green and sickly. His smile was wide, endless. "Balance restored," he said. "The train may continue." I staggered back into the carriage. My coat was black with soot, my skin blistered where the ledger had branded me. When I looked, I saw the mark, a single word etched into my palm, red as coal. Spared. The whistle screamed once more, and the funeral train lurched forward, pulling away from the station of ashes. I collapsed into the seat of my compartment, the lantern swaying above me, the wheels grinding beneath. Outside, the darkness swallowed the platform whole. And yet, even as the train sped into the void, I knew this wasn't over. Because when I glanced back at the ledger's pedestal through the window, its pages opened one last time. A new name wrote itself in flame. Pierce, pending. The train howled. The ash followed. And I realized, once you board the funeral train, you never truly leave. You only delay the inevitable.